Anyway, I request Sh.Sam Sudheer Bandi to give valuable tips for our field communicators.
Vanakkam. I speak in English. I'm still learning Tamil. So hopefully sometime I'll also speak in Tamil very soon. And I think the context was laid very well by our speakers, by the inaugural guests, both by Robert Teacher and also Panichami sir. And I think what we're trying to do is, as communicators, what is our role? We try to explore that kind of role we have as communicators. We're all communicators here. Probably we are professional communicators than anybody else, right? There's public and then us. So we always become a bridge, we become a medium to share very important message, right? And especially when you're talking to the government, when you're working on behalf of a government or a UN agency like UNICEF, what you're trying to do is you're trying to share very important messages, very important information, and sometimes that could be life-saving as well. So when you're talking about schemes and services and programs, how do you take these schemes and services and programs of the government to the most marginalized child or a marginalized family, to the nook and corner of a country, of a district? How do you inform that person, that family living in a far-reached hut, that there are schemes and services which you can avail, right? And how do you say it? And which medium do you use? Yeah? And through whom will you tell that story, right? So I think you all know the power of communication. I think you're all communicators, and probably much better communicators than I am, and much more senior. But if you go back to history, how did we arrive at this? Like, for example, I'll take one example of brushing your teeth, right? Where did we learn that from? Anybody? It's an interaction actually. See, I don't have a presentation also. I thought presentation will bore you to death. So we'll make it very interactive. So tell me, where did you learn? How did we learn to brush our teeth? From mother. But where did mother learn it from? With the stems of neem. Yeah, I'm talking about toothbrush and a toothpaste. How did we learn that we need to brush our teeth? Who told you that you need to brush your teeth with your toothpaste and a toothbrush? Advertisement, yes. Advertisement. How did we learn to drink Gold Spot and Limca and now Pepsi and Coca-Cola? Who taught us? Media, right? So media, in the sense, you have the advertising, you have the film, you have all kinds of formats of media, right? So people tell you, give you the information, and you imbibe some of the information, and you try to act. Like Sir said, you receive a message and you act, right? We give out a lot of messages, but if the messages doesn't go, that's one. And if it goes and there is no responsive action, which means our communication has failed, right? So what we try to do is we need to find efficient ways, effective ways of communicating with people, especially the people who come from different backgrounds, varied backgrounds, and come from varied different social constructs, right? And there are people who also don't talk our language, right? So how do you assess an audience? Let's say you're sitting in Kerala, right? You're sitting in some tribal pockets of Kerala, and you need to identify your audience for a immunization program. I'm going to take my example because it makes me comfortable. So let's say there is a child in a tribal area, tribal pocket of Kerala, right? You need to convince those children of the parents of the child to get that child immunized. What should be the format? What should be your message? Who are your audience? And how will you say it? Let's do an exercise. So there is a family in the tribal pockets of Kerala where we need to send a message saying that this child in that pocket needs to be vaccinated. How will you say that? What is your key message? What is your key message for immunization? Health of a child, right? And what else can be the key message? What does vaccines do? What do vaccines do? Protection, right? Protection from deadly diseases, right? So you're actually saving lives, right? So you're trying to tell the parent of that, the parents who are living in a small pocket in tribal pocket of Kerala, that the child should be vaccinated so that the child doesn't die of easily preventable diseases, right? This is your message. Please vaccinate your child and protect your child from these deadly diseases. So this is your demography, this is your audience, and this is your message. So what should be your medium? How will you go tell them that? But how? What would include in that communication? Interaction, right? For example, let's say your message. How will your message be? How will your message be? Pictures, video. First you need to analyze your audience. There's a tribal family living in a tribal pocket of Kerala. Video should be better. Why is that? Maybe illiterate, yes, sir. Cultural, yes. So who should say that to them? Who should convey that message for them to act? See, without action, our communication fails, right? So how do you persuade the parents, the caregivers, to make that child to get vaccinated? Tribal folk songs, okay, and right? So you have the format, you have the message, you have the format, you have the channel. What should be the channel? How you want to reach there? What should be your channel to reach out to the tribal pockets of Kerala? Direct, right? So what you do is you go to them and try to convince them, saying that please get your child vaccinated, right? So will the tribal people listen to you? No, right? No, I'm trying to put a whole comprehensive communication plan out in front of you. So if tribal people don't listen to you, who will they listen to? Local community leaders, right? See, it's also very important what kind of a messengers you're also using. I think that's the topic of this session, right? Collaborating, partnering with influencers, local community leaders, academia, to take your very important message to the people who are in need and most vulnerable, right? So you also need to choose your messenger, where as a messenger you will not work because you don't look like your audience, you don't speak like your audience, you don't behave like your audience, you and your audience don't come from the same cultural background, right? You and your audience don't come from the same socio-political background, right? So you need to find somebody who is like your audience, who is culturally like your audience, who is socio-politically like your audience. Some people who the audience will respect, where the messenger has a credibility within this audience. Make sense? I think we all do this, right? So when we're talking about who should be our messenger, except us, we are the core messengers. As communicators, we are the core messengers, right? Yes? Yes or no? Yes? So who else can collaborate? We can collaborate with. So like sir said, the local community leaders. Who are these local community leaders? Are we talking about politicians? Are we talking about NGOs? Yeah. Are we talking about the tribal leaders or the pocket leaders, the hamlet leaders? And will they listen to us? Do we understand the hierarchy there in that community as well? That if you understand the hierarchy of the community, who should say what, who say actually matters. That's also important to understand. So I think the whole gamut of the whole exercise what we are trying to do before we actually send out a message or develop the key messages to actually understand our audiences. We have diverse audiences, we have different kinds of audiences, and according to the audiences our key messaging will change, our approach will change, our forms of communication will change, the forms of media we use is going to change. Yes? Yes or no? Yes? And even the format will change. Like if you take the same example of vaccinating a child in the urban space in Chennai, so what should be your media? What should be your message? You can use, yeah. And what is the challenge here for an urban setting? Right? The timing, yes, and multitude of formats available. Like for example, the message has to be in many formats. The message should be audio, video, print, social media, memes, every kind of message, so that you can reach to your target audience. And you also need to use various forms of communication channels, not just TV and radio and print. You also have this big the social media, right? So we also need to grapple with that as well. So media is not with one person anymore. Anybody who has a phone has a control of the media, right? So how do we maneuver that? How do we reach out to those audience? I think that's also very important. So we've discussed, that faith leaders could also be some of the influencers whom you can catch upon, right? You can also have tribal leaders, you can also have community leaders, and what we've also done is in UNICEF very recently, we are also asking the political parties also to be included in the development discourse, the development action. So what we have done is we have caught hold of youth wings of political parties. I think it's an internal meeting, right? So I'm telling you this. It's a good example. So what we have done is we have caught hold of youth wings of political parties, and we said, think about a child. And the reason why we said it because these leaders in the youth wings of political parties, in the future they'll become an MLA or an MP or a minister or a CM. So what we thought is we need to put that grain of a child in their heads before they get there, right? And at the same time, they also have a huge network of people working with them who are part of that wing, who are part of that political party. Then we said, why don't we use them to send across messages on children? What is a full vaccination? We made a small video and sent it to them, and they share it with everybody else in their network, right? And one of the key challenges what we've seen right now is even in social media, we are not able to overcome the sphere of influence which we have already made. Like for example, this is a group, and in this group only we are telling each other, oh, you need to do this, oh, we need to vaccinate a child, we need to vaccinate a child, you're telling me to vaccinate a child. But we are not able to cross this room and go outside and tell people who actually need it. How do you overcome that? How do you move above beyond this group? Right? So like for example, WhatsApp groups. WhatsApp groups are all, in the WhatsApp groups we are all connected with like-minded people, right? But how do I go beyond that group? So that is also something we should look at. How do you go beyond and go to the newer audience? So how do we go to the newer audience? We've been talking to the same audience again and again and again and again. But how do you overcome this and go to newer audience who actually require that information? I think that is also something we need to look at. And one way of doing that is in two things: in creating content and also disseminating that content. I think youth have been very influential in terms of that. How do we engage with youth at a local level, and how do we strengthen their skills or build their capacities to create content for development discourse, creating content for a cause. So we have been experimenting that here in Chennai as well. That get few young people, teach them the skill of making content, and use that content to disseminate further. So we are actually going to, hopefully we'll be working with NSS also in that. So how do you co-create content with young people? How do you disseminate that content to young people? Because you want to reach to a newer audience, because you are telling the same audience for about 10, 15 years, 20 years, we say talking to the same audience. But how do we go to the audience which actually never heard this message? So that is also something which I wanted to come and talk to you about, is how do you engage people who are not part of the regular audience, and how do we collaborate with them? I don't know whether we'll have an opportunity to work with PIB on this, with you guys, in terms of working with young people to co-create and disseminate that information. It's not just like about health, about children, but it's about everything else, even programs and schemes also, especially the programs and schemes which are related to young people. It could be skilling, or it could be career guidance, or whatever that is, whatever schemes are there. We can actually work with them and talk to them about how they see it as a scheme and how they want to tell their peers about that scheme. So what happens is you are doing two things there. You are also simplifying messages, you are also providing new content, and you are also providing in a newer, fresh way, right? The one way of we have seen this being very effective is memes. Memes have become a very effective way in terms of sharing that message. The short videos you see on social media, so those are very effective. But the thing is, memes are used for something else, but memes can also be used for a cause or for a development discourse. How do we engage young people to create that memes, to produce those memes? That's also something which is probably a vacant area where we can explore. So there are a couple of ideas which we thought I need to put you across, and it's important to also do an analysis before we jump into this whole discourse, this whole process. You need to do an analysis of your audience. You need to do an analysis of your influencers, the local influencers, that could be the media, the religious leaders, the faith leaders, the tribal leaders, the political parties, or people with influence, both locally and also on social media. And a lot of young people on social media are quite influential, and also we can also use that channel also in terms of taking our messages up, across. So these are some couple of things which we could think of and have, and see whether we can work together on this in terms of developing content and also disseminating that content as well. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and thank you PIB, and thank you for listening to me. Thank you so much.